All right, all right. Let's see, what are we doing today? Turn this up a little bit. Nisa, how's it going? Hey, the good morning. Y'all got to give me something to talk about. I am doing well. It's a reprieve from the heat today, and it's been a busy but fun week. You know, a lot of social stuff. So, figured I knew some comrades were doing some mutual aid work and some fundraising. So, figured I'd take some time to do a little streaming, and then we could raid in and hopefully help contribute to their cause. So, do not contribute to me financially today. Save it for later. Let's see if I can do this quest. Earn 1,000 metal points in a battleground. Let's see if I can do it in one battleground. Solidarity forever. The union keeps us strong.
Stormlords. You're proud.
Thought about making a song, but, you know, as I opened the software up, I just didn't have much of any inspiration coming to mind, and I've actually got at least a couple songs that I've completed that I haven't even used yet, so... Oh, there we go. Fast pop. Let's do it. Hey, Moo Aragon. Nisa Simpson, the police offender survey. I have not. Feel free to drop a link, but I have not heard of that. I'm a fast reader, so I can probably get some reading done on a loading screen. Hey, the first time I drop into a game in progress and my team's actually in the lead. Alright, let's go. Food on. Let's see. What are we dealing with here? Oh, let's capture the relic. Cool. Man, they're in the lead and they only had 3 people. Even cooler. Well, let's see if we can't just influence this a bit. I'm but a distraction. And you're dead. Beautiful. It'd be really fun if I can get into a match in progress and get top kills before the match is over. There's a challenge. Do let me know if everyone can hear me okay above the game sounds. Ooh, should have saw that coming.
Get the relic back!
Okay. Wow.
Get the relic!
Well, that sucked. 0 points. Let's see if I can get a game that's not in progress. Yeah, send me a link to anything like that you want, and I'll take a look at it. But haven't heard anything about Florida yet, so it's been a few days, which means that something bad has probably happened in Florida in the last few days since I've heard from Florida. Let's see, settings. Video. Where are we at? Oh, we're on high. Yeah, we're doing good. You know, I always worry that the resolution of the games looks bad. I think it should look good. Yeah, games look good. Ish. What is this quality?
If you hadn't stopped the Covenant from summoning Sadal, we'd all be dead.
Let's see. Sheriff's Office letter targets residents for increased accountability. Oh, this sounds like some cringe. This is going to be horrible. Alright, let's see here. Pasco Sheriff's Office letter targets residents for increased accountability. Oh boy. Starts like an offer of admission from a prestigious university. We are pleased to inform you that you have been selected. Selected for what? Wait, I'm hearing an echo of some sort here. Oh, I know what it is. It's these headphones. Let's just turn those on down. Doop. Okay. A 4-page letter goes on to tell recipients that they will be facing enhanced police scrutiny under the agency's controversial intelligence program. You were selected as a result of an evaluation of your recent criminal behavior using an unbiased, evidence-based risk assessment designed to identify prolific offenders in our community. As a result of this designation, we will go to great efforts to encourage change in your life through enhanced support and increased accountability. Huh? The agency sends deputies to their homes repeatedly, often without a search warrant or probable cause for an arrest. Targets and their relatives, including 4 who are now suing the sheriff's office in federal court, describe the tactics as harassment and violation of their constitutional rights. Some have said it's something to be expected under authoritarian regime. Well, you know, I think perhaps we pretend that we're not living in an authoritarian regime. Perhaps that's the greatest lie we've ever told about the United States. We're just an authoritarian regime with a little bit better set dressing. Oh, guess we're going in. Yeah, guess we have to. Red's got 2. I think we can hold these 2 and we'll do fine. Hey, Donnie Donaway. How are you? So basically, since I'm not showing the article on screen, all it boils down to is these cops are using intelligence agencies to spy on the citizens to identify quote-unquote metrics that suggest crime or recidivism, and they're using this as a means to preemptively visit them with law enforcement. Which, honestly, some said authoritarian regime, this feels like fucking mob shit. It's goddamn mob behavior. And they're just playing it off like this is a perfectly normal thing for the cops to do. Yeah, and this is what you get in cop brain, and I really don't like to demean anybody who lives in Florida. There's some beautiful parts of Florida, and there's some beautiful people in beautiful parts of Florida, but a lot of the leadership top down there has just got this absolutely fucked series of priorities. So it's something I caution any of my comrades living in Florida to be extra cautious. Nope, you're not good enough. Oh. Yeah, cops are just legal mobs. Biggest gang in the United States right there. $690,000 member gang.
Time for retribution. They've captured the point.
Yes. Split push. Come on, let's go. If we can roll 2 flags at once, we got this in the bag.
They've secured the point.
Jesus, die already. Fuck's sake.
Mario Saber, they've taken the point. Oh, Alexia's grace, we've captured the point.
Just gonna take this point up here. Morrowind is an amazing game, Red Green. No bones about it. Morrowind is just a killer game. 1, 2. Come on, I got you too, motherfucker. You're gonna die as well. Alright, let's see. Where are they taking our flag?
Oh, Alexia's grace,
Let's go.
we've captured the point.
That's our flag. That is our flag. You get your filthy hands off of it. Todd Howard. Look, they should all be dead. Bobby Kotick, Todd Howard, all these motherfuckers, all these tech daddies with these positively gross abuses of power in their industries. We need to absolutely firebomb their asses from the industry entirely. It is a crying shame that half of the same conversations we were having in the aftermath of Gamergate we're having right now. And the dudes in the industry are acting the exact same as they did back then. It's fucking ridiculous. Why should we have to keep talking about this shit? And yeah, Todd Howard is a game killer. Luckily, you should know, though, Red Green, in terms of Bethesda, Bethesda's core, people like Todd Howard and whatnot, generally don't have as much to do with this game since it's an MMO. This game is largely ran by ZeniMax Online Service, ZeniMax being their parent company and ZeniMax Online Service being a sort of separate entity to the core Bethesda that makes, Skyrim and Fallout and shit. And they're all different teams as well, so. Oh, we about to pull a 4-cap. Oh, so close. I got snuck. Yes. Honestly, that'd be a great video idea if I had the right, way to vocalize my concerns on the subject. I think that the game industry, along with several others, are in desperate need of unionization and democratic workplaces, and they are one of several industries that has avoided unionization and collectivizing their workplaces. They've avoided it for a long time, and basically, we're seeing the issues that go hand in hand with that now. The gaming industry is one of them. Believe it or not, movie theaters are one of the most exploitative industries out there as well. A lot of people don't know that. Movie theaters are extremely exploitative. Many movie theaters, unbeknownst to many, just to use one example, their janitorial teams at a lot of major movie chains are actually undocumented workers, oftentimes paid heinously below minimum wage, and given very poor conditions to work for and almost no worker protections whatsoever. And movie theaters get away with this en masse. Restaurants. The whole restaurant industry, listen, I love to cook. I love cooking, and I even like watching some cooking shows. And I have a lot of respect for restaurant cooks, and I have a lot of respect for, chefs, line cooks, cleaning staff, all of that in the restaurant, because that's a hard-ass job and a really cutthroat field. But philosophically, there's a lot of problems in the cooking industry, and it's not all just the worker exploitation. There's the mindset in the cooking industry. A lot of these dudes that run these kitchens sit on this fucking power kick like no other. They're on this crazy-ass power kick in a whole lot of restaurant industries. And so they almost run their kitchens militaristically. And you can talk to cooks, people who've been line cooks in like high-end restaurants that are like high frequency with like lots of prep and really complex tasks. And they can tell you first and foremost, like drug use, depression, anxiety, alcoholism is rampant in restaurants. Alcoholism is positively rampant because of the sheer stress of the job, coupled with injuries. Every line cook I know has several injuries from knives and burns all over their body. In addition to that, the hours are very long, oftentimes not properly paid for these hours. All right. And any complaints that are made, there's still this culture in the culinary field where you're not supposed to complain. If you complain, you just can't cut it. You just can't cut it. They tell you just can't cut it if you complain about the environment in these kitchens, in these restaurant kitchens. They tell you can't cut it. You're not able to do it. You're not tough enough. You don't have the spirit for it. And if that includes getting verbally berated by some asshole chef on a power trip, well, that's supposed to be part of the territory. Why is verbal abuse expected to be a part of any job? It shouldn't. That's the point, is that it shouldn't be. But restaurant industry is one of those where we just assume that you should be okay with rampant abuse on the off chance that you might be able to one day work your way up and then be able to verbally abuse other people yourself when you are in the position of power. And I get it. It's a shitty industry. I had a discussion with a friend of mine about this. Someone had posted a sort of little anecdote on Facebook. And anecdotes aren't really evidence, but they can be indicative of greater issues. It talked about this guy who came in as a line cook to this kitchen up north. He's a little bit older. He has some southern affectations. When he talks to people, he calls them hun. Just like, hey, hun. Oh, can you hand me that, hun? Oh, thanks, hun. That's just a mannerism that he has. And I guess it's something he had been told he had to break himself of. He said he called his sous chef, hun, his female sous chef, hun, once in the kitchen, and she berated him and said, "It is chef. That's the only way you'll refer to me as chef." Da 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 da. And I guess at one point, one other time, he had slipped up and let it out. And next thing you know, he was called into the executive chef's office and terminated on the spot for not showing respect to his sous chef. And I guess on his way out, the sous chef told him, like, "Oh, well, I'm a woman in this industry. You have no idea the BS I've went through to get the respect that I have now. So if you fail to acknowledge it, then you're going to fail working in the culinary world if you can't do it, right? So here's the thing. I can agree that a woman working in the culinary world should absolutely not have to go through the abuse and the levels of bullshit that they go through and the pay disparities that they go through to get to a position of leadership or to get to a command position. At the same time, I can also say that maybe, just maybe, we shouldn't have a militaristic hierarchy around the culinary field, perhaps.
No, they've captured the point.
It sucks. I don't know if it's something that warrants instant termination. I think that the things that sous chef goes through in the industry is also not okay and should be fixed. At the same time, well, I'll just put it to you like this. We know now that maybe there's not all that's cracked up to having this militaristic hierarchy, because it's not exactly good for the people who actually go to the military.
Yes, the point is ours. Divine's wrath. They've captured the point.
No, Nisa, I agree with you. I'm not saying leaders aren't necessary. Listen, you know, I don't believe every single decision is to be made democratically. That's and that I would even never say that as an anarchist, because if I talk, you know, in terms about other more serious things like armed direct action or things like that, or community defense, you need individuals who can make executive decisions quickly to carry out said common goal. There's people with that training and people with that capability. What I am saying is that we can have a more collective and democratic run area, as well as having people who we appoint to call those shots in the middle of battle. You know, the middle of battle is not necessarily a place for democracy. That's absolutely true. You know, that's why, it's just assuming, just as an example, assuming I had an armed unit, I had an armed contingent of community defense operatives, people who I rallied from my community. Yeah, we would definitely meet democratically on a lot of our objectives, not to mention accountability to our surrounding community. But if gunshots start going off, if there's bullets flying, that's the time to issue orders and follow them. So you have to have somebody who can make those decisions in the split second. We just don't need to operate the entire kitchen in that fashion all day, every day. Maybe some steps could be taken from some of that line cook's involving maybe some of that line cook's peers. Hey, peers of said line cook, perhaps you all can help this individual with the proper honorific titles and whatnot that they seem to be struggling with. Not just show all fealty to the almighty chef or you're sacked. You're out the door. Do you see where I would have issue with that? That's not a model we should emulate. Prussian military school was not cool. It is not based. We do not want the Prussian military school model in every fucking aspect of society that gives us this slavish adherence to authority. I've rejected that my entire life. You can imagine I was a difficult student and a difficult son. Kitchens, though, like I said, that's another one. There's a shitload of wage theft in kitchens. There's a shitload of abuse in kitchens. There's a shitload of sexism in kitchens. There's a ton of racism in kitchens. In general, the restaurant industry is one that is in dire need of collectivization because they do get away with so much. So, and even I really try not to, because I have friends who have a lot of respect for him, so I try not to badmouth Anthony Bourdain too much, because Lord knows he knew his shit. But at the same time, even Anthony Bourdain, someone who was real, someone who was in it, someone who saw it all for it was, and, you know, in his book Kitchen Confidential even talked about some of the, Jesus Christ, even talked about some of the real aspects of the kitchen, the dark aspects that come as a result of these workers, and the shit that they go through, the drug use, the suicidal ideation, the verbal abuse, things like that. He has never taken a questioning or critical lens of the systems in place that are allowing this to continue. Never took, while he was praising the work ethic of a lot of the migrant workers he encountered working, while he praised the work ethics of a lot of the migrant workers that he encountered working in on these cooking lines throughout different restaurants, he never questioned the system of why they had to have such an unshakable resolve that it was maybe they were subject to being ostracized by society, potentially deported, potentially left in financial turmoil if they lost said job. He never questioned those systems in place. He said, oh, you should just be more like these humble, hard-working migrant cooks that I worked with. Meanwhile, you know, Anthony Bourdain was a fucking rich white kid. He took vacations in France during his childhood. So
They've taken the point.
and yeah, Kitchen Confidential had this weird work ethic glorifications of garbage work conditions, positively garbage work conditions. You had people during that era working in kitchens with carpal tunnel and degenerative bone illnesses from standing so long, people regularly getting third-degree burns from kitchen equipment on the reg. And you say, oh, this is a tough as grit industry, a tough as nails industry. It was making cooking manly. It was making cooking masculine. It was making working as a chef masculine. That was the goal behind it. I agree, Red Green. Bourdain was not based. He could have used his platform to leverage workers' rights. But oftentimes he was held up in his journalism work as this arbiter of the essence of food, even though he himself continued to support an unjust hierarchy, unquestionably. Honestly, I should honestly poll my channel, like over a series of weeks, on some of the worst industries for worker exploitation that I know of. And ask every week, ask it for a different industry. Like, one week say, how many of you worked in food industry and have lifelong injuries from working in the food industry? How many of you witnessed worker exploitation in the movie theater industry? I work in security. It's no different in security. Security is an industry that is sadly not very impacted by democratic workplaces, and sometimes, given the nature of the beast, some security agencies are weaponized against labor movements. I'm sorry to say. It's ugly. Security is another one. Yeah, no, I can't imagine working a meat slicer for hours and hours and hours. And then in the Good Morty, it goes a step further. I am firmly of the belief that any professional human, I'm of the belief that any professional working human that is more or less abled and functioning has, even someone who's completely neurotypical, fully abled, high functioning, I think they have 6 productive hours a day at max. And that's a stretch. Some of us even fight for the 4-hour workday, but I think if you stretch it from there, a human has 6 fully productive hours a day if they are an abled individual. And so anytime beyond that, you're going to see productivity fall. and then you're getting into a danger zone. So you couple that with the fact that oftentimes culinary settings have a whole hell of a lot of forced overtime, little to no protections for the workers, not a lot of legal routes for them to go. So oftentimes, if you don't comply with the forced overtime, you either A, are shotgunning any chances at advancement because you have to embrace that system, that hierarchy, in order to advance, right? Or B, they just terminate you on the spot. So, yeah, red green. I actually have a lot of criticisms about how we portray the potential changes we could have to the workday, because it just doesn't apply to all of them. You know, it's something that's much harder to apply when we're talking about jobs like the ones I work in security, where you have to have a person present at a location 24 hours a day. Okay? And this isn't even like redundancy stuff or unimportant stuff. Some of this is really important stuff. Everything from bank vaults to medication vaults and all in between. Hospitals, okay, care facilities. The security industry is a perfect example of that. That would be a definite challenge, not just for the big corporations, but for everyone down the ladder to immediately to move everyone to a 4-day work week. The workforce expansion required to turn a position like that into a 4-day work week would be challenging, and that's the most charitable language I could use. The challenge would be immense, monumentous. We're talking again about industries where, and this is jobs I've worked for the last 10 years. You got to have somebody standing at that spot. You have to have a person at that spot for 24 hours a day. So do the math in your head, right? We're operating on an 8-hour workday right now. So flex some industry knowledge on you. If you work in security, right? You work in security. You know that if you have a post that is an around-the-clock post or a 24-hour post, whatever you're going to call it, doing 8-hour shifts, to cover one day at that post, you're going to need 3 human beings. You're going to need 3 security personnel to cover that post. Then, hey Beer Bash, what's up? Just talking to chat, playing ESO, and maybe a little later going to raid into the charity stream here. And so then, working 8 hours a day, that's 3 people you need to staff that post around the clock. But then they need it the next day. We're talking about a post that's manned 24/7. Right? So now you need 3 more people the next day. Your first, second, and third shifter. Right? 3 more people the next day. But surprise, weekends. As I said, this post is manned 24/7. So now if you have that post that's manned 24/7, you need at least 3 more people. So now you're at a total of 6 people to man one position 24/7, and that's operating off of a 8-hour workday or an 8-hour shift per employee. 8-hour shift per employee. So now, if we talked about a 4-hour workday, right? We talked about, let's do the 4-hour workday model once, because I can do that in my head. I'm not that great at math. I'd have to write down to do it into a 4-day work week. You could do 12s. Believe it or not, in my industry, 12s are actually more popular. It's easier to hire people for 12s, because it means you have more off days. It means you have more off days in a week. I am not paying attention to my team. Some people prefer 410s to 5/8s. You get more days off. Yep, Beer Bash Johnson. Some people work 412s, so what happens is that they take 48 hours a day. A lot of cops do this, actually. I work in security, Beer Bash. Yes. So a lot of cops do 412s, and they have a weird system called a Kelly Day. So basically, they get this like extra day off that gets rolled in every month or every couple of weeks or so. It's kind of a weird system. A whole lot of cops do 412s, actually. Most of the cops in my city do 412. Cops do an ass load of time theft. Cops do an obscene amount of time theft. You have no idea. If you only knew how much time the cops steal from their... If you had any idea how much time the cops steal from the city's coffers, it's not even funny. And that's not counting side contracts or assignments.
We seized the point.
Details, if you will, side details. So, that's the thing. Cops get a level of worker liberation that they have played a role in systematically denying from workers historically.
We must answer in kind. They've taken the point.
It's very true. Usually, they're all scheduled for 12s. On top of that, there's never a question. Unlike in corporate settings or private settings, there's usually some effort to curb excessive overtimes or unpaid overtime or excessive unplanned overtime in corporate settings, whereas most police settings, generally speaking, if someone, say, for instance, calls off, cops almost just regularly just take the extra shift themselves. It's not unusual for them to sleepwalk their way through another whole extra shift and just clock in and log 16 hours. And depending on the state you're in, some states have double time. You know, some states pay double time after you hit 12 hours. After you hit the 12th hour, I lived in California. California is like that. The state of California requires you to go into double time after the 12th hour. And so, yeah, they log a ton of overtime. Then nobody ever stops and asks, okay, maybe this cop called off, so that's one less cruiser. Do we need that one extra cruiser out on the road? The cops will tell you, how dare you question it? We gotta keep our streets safe. You gotta have that cruiser out there, but we never actually say, really? Do we really need that? And nobody asks that question. That is pretty awesome, Red Green. Clearly I'm not paying attention to this match. Will you die already? Jesus Christ.
It was never a contest. We've taken the point.
Oh, for fuck's sake. I'm not even going to get this flag. Yeah, I have a sorcerer in ESO. Oh yeah, sure thing, Nisa. I have a sorcerer in ESO. Sorcerers can get away with some of that minion fighting stuff. Also, wardens can. Not to the level of sorcerers, but wardens can summon the wild animals to do a lot of their bidding. I don't know if it's to the level of... You still have to actively fight. It's more like they take the heat off of you so you can just focus on doing the damage. I know in Guild Wars... your minions are a lot stronger comparatively.
That new point won't capture itself.
We're not doing very well. I mean, it's probably at least partially my fault. Where is my team? Where is my team? Okay, we need to team fight.
They have secured the point. Unfathomable.
Okay.
We're about to lose.
There are necromancers.
We seize
There are necromancers in ESO, so I don't know why that didn't occur to me. They're kind of built around that, but a lot of their stuff is built more around the synergy with, like, devouring corpses and stuff. And some of more necromancer-themed abilities, less actual dead army summoning, if that makes sense.
Time for retribution. They've captured the point.
The life-stealing focus class is actually the one I'm playing here, and that's Nightblade, but I'm not playing a life-stealing build. That's the magic Nightblade build. This is a PvP. I'm a big PvPer, mostly. This is a PvP battleground. Go and kill this fucking werewolf.
Onto the new capture point.
Werewolves are strong, but they have a sensitivity to poison damage.
By the glory of close
And I'm a bow wielder, so like 50% of my damage is poison.
They've seized the point.
unfathomable. They've secured the point. To the new point. Capture the point.
I would like this match to end. Dang it. People pulled me off of my conversation. I was trying to do some math to give people a rundown on some of the difficulties with just assigning the idea of pushing a 4-hour workday. No, you're fine, Beer Bash. It's welcome to the channel. People do that to me all the time. It's not just you. It's anyone who talks to me, really. I said I'm chatting with chat, so thanks for giving me something to talk about. Right. So you think to yourself, well, I have to talk about 4-hour. We want to take that 24-hour gig and turn it into 4-hour shifts. So every single one of those people, we were up to 6 officers to cover one post, assuming 2 of them are okay with working. Assuming, sorry, not 2 officers, 3 more each. So that would actually be. Yeah, no, 6 officers, 3 during the week, and 3 to cover 24 hours for Saturday and Sunday. So that's 6, right? But that's on 8-hour shifts. So if we turned that into 4-hour workday, we're technically now at 12 people. We've basically needed to double our workforce. We now need 12 people to cover one position 24/7. That's just one. And very few security assignments are just one post. Okay, some posts require multiple security personnel. Some of them vary during the week, right? And then, of course, then you deal with all of the recruiting issues of you have to find people to accommodate each of those shifts. So every shift that increases in size, it gets more and more difficult with its size increase to staff because people have lives, people have families, people have other jobs, people have children, people have religious requirements, people have health issues, all kinds of things. People have lives outside of work. So now what took you 6 people who could accommodate working the shifts that you're offering in your life now takes you 12 people. You have to find 12 people who have 4 hours available every day to fit that specific shift. So this isn't me playing defense for corporations. It could be done, but this is not a quick fix. This is nowhere near ever going to be a quick fix, and even just saying hire more people wouldn't necessarily be the solution. Trust me, I've worked in this industry a while, and I've done every aspect of it, including recruiting for the roles. It's not always easy. People, again, they have lives, they have children, and I want people to have healthy work relationships. I want people to have healthy work-life balances. I don't want them to be putting their family on the back burner to work. I don't want them putting their health on the back burner to work. That's not okay. That's honestly an ugly facet of our society. The 4-day work weeks is more of just the same problem. Jesus Christ. I'm the anomaly there. What do you mean, Nisa? You're absolutely right, Beer Bash, and that takes us back to the what I was talking about with kitchens and working in culinary. It's people glorify working your fingers to the bone in a kitchen somewhere. They act like their scars, their cuts, and their burns and their crushed joints from working in kitchens are battle scars and trophies and proof of how much they deserve their spot, how much they really get to be there. You have to earn your spot there. I see it everywhere. I see it everywhere. It's gross. It really is. The fact that this is how we fetishize brutal labor conditions. I worked at a casino. That's a video coming up. I worked at Frito-Lay. I worked at a Frito-Lay distribution center personally. And I can tell you everything they've said is true. Everything they said is true. I'm honestly going to make a video about it because I saw it firsthand. And yeah, Frito-Lay is a positive hellhole. And at the time, I blamed myself for washing out. I did. I was young. I was very young, like 20 years old when I started working there. And I blamed myself for everything that went wrong with that job, but I never once... oh, yes. I worked in a Frito-Lay distribution center. At the time, I never questioned why it had to be that way. I can give you all a brief story. So, I'm probably going to make an unscripted video saying this again. But yeah, so, I don't know. Maybe I'll make a stream clip. That's not cheating at all. So, I worked at Frito-Lay. It was prior to working at Frito-Lay. I have to give you the background here. This is some years back. I'm a little older than a lot of my viewers. The minimum wage, I want to say this was literally back when the minimum wage, federal minimum wage, was recently switched to $7.25 an hour. And I say that because the previous jobs I had here in Ohio were paid $8 an hour. I believe that's what I was paid. And the jobs I had no 06, 07, 08, around then. And the jobs I'd had before that, they refused to pay anything more than $8 an hour. So, yeah. Oh, I remember much further. I remember when Ohio's minimum wage was $6 an hour, and then when I remember my first job out of high school, I'm teenager job. I started working in high school, and I remember my manager complaining that it went up to $6.85, and I was just chit chatting with him. He was like, oh yeah, it's up to $6.85. This could kill us. And I'm like, it's only 85 cents. And he proceeds to tell me, he's like, oh well, there's taxes and benefits and da da da. I didn't have benefits, so whatever he was talking about. Anyway, I decided at one point through some of the other entry-level minimum wage jobs that I was working that I really wanted something higher paying, and I was pretty capable of physical labor at the time. I was really capable of physical labor. And because I was a former college athlete at that point. And I just said, oh, I can stack boxes in a warehouse, and I don't do drugs, so I can pass the drug test, and I don't have any priors. They had a very serious background check and drug test. That was the first drug test I ever went to, which I remind you was to stack boxes in a warehouse where I had to give a hair sample. First time I ever had to give a hair sample for a jobs drug test. Blew my mind to stack boxes in a warehouse. If you don't know, by the way, hair samples can denote chemicals in your system for up to 2 years. That may or may not be constitutional. Yeah. So, I got that job. I was offered $13.25 an hour. There are jobs today that don't pay that. The local movie theater down the road from me pays $11. Yeah. The movie theater down the road from me pays $11 an hour. That job in the early aughts paid $13.25, so that was more money than I even knew what to do with in my little $400 a month apartment with my piddly little bills. I was on Easy Street for a little bit to forecast a bit, to foreshadow. But yeah, so after training, I was part-time. I was supposed to be hired part-time at Frito-Lay at a distribution center here in Ohio. It was supposed to be part-time because that's what they said was all they had available was, oh, you're going to be part-time, so you may not have a whole lot of hours. And I said, that's fine. The pay rate is good. I can still, maybe I can seek out another job or something. It was all about that work ethic back then. And I said, yeah, sign me up. I went through the classroom training and orientation. It was a pretty simple job. It was more physically demanding. And what happens is, as soon as I get out there, first day on the job, my schedule is up on the wall. My name's finally on the schedule. And it has me listed at 48 hours for the week. I'd be working 48 hours for my first week on the warehouse floor as a part-timer. Which, yeah, was a lot less than everyone else because a lot of other people were up there. No health care. But a lot of other people were up there for like 52, 54, 60-hour weeks per the schedule. This isn't unforeseen overtime. This is what they printed on our spreadsheet schedule, was that they were working 52-hour weeks. Mind you, I would go on to work far more than 48 hours. Frito-Lay basically is a place where that shift, which was the main shift that you work, is at a distribution center. So all of the trucks would come from the factories. The big, long 52-foot trucks would come from the factories with cases of bags of chips. Boxes, just cardboard boxes of bags of chips. They would come to the factory, from the factory to this warehouse. And the morning shift would unload these trucks and stack them. They would unload these and stack them throughout the facility. The majority of the workers, the majority of the people who worked there are actually sorters. What we would do is pick pack, if you will. That's a warehouse term. If anyone's ever worked in a warehouse, they know what pick pack is. Basically, we would go through the warehouse and pull down the product from the shelves. Go through the warehouse, pull down the product from the shelves, and load it onto those little Frito-Lay box trucks that you see driving around. We called those package cars. Those little Frito-Lay package cars, we would load boxes onto those with little metal push carts. And that was my whole shift, all day, every day, aside from taking breaks to load recycled cardboard boxes onto these big 52-foot trucks where they would go to be reused. Frito-Lay actually reused all of their cardboard cases that they sent their chips in. We would stack them flat and put them in a baling machine and then put the whole bales back onto a truck where they would go get reused. These boxes had a long life. I want to say there was some corporate study once that suggested, due to Frito-Lay's sheer volume, if they didn't recycle their boxes and reuse them, they would actually go bankrupt from the amount of cardboard that they would need. So, that's something. But that was the majority of the shift. 10, 12, 14 hours of pushing this cart around a warehouse. We would wear this headset attached to a little laser scanner for the barcodes. And it was actually a pretty interesting and advanced system. It was a voice-controlled system that we used while we were sorting and pulling and packing and sorting. Basically, the warehouse was laid out in an order. Right. Every single every single section was numbered, and this was digitized onto a map. So, when you hold on a second. When you started a run, basically you would start a load. So you knew that you had a package car over there, and there was going to be like 4 or 5 push carts full of cases of chips for that package car. That package car was driven by a driver who owned a route and an account. Basically, they had an account with a store for us to be allowed to stock so much potato chips and whatnot. Like, it could be a Kroger, it could be a gas station, anything that has potato chips. Every place that has Frito-Lay potato chips, unless that person goes and buys them from like Sam's Club or something, they're probably been sold an account with Frito-Lay where they have a designated driver that comes out and restocks their shelves for them. And that is company policy. That driver, not the store owner, but that driver goes to the store and restocks those shelves for Frito-Lay and for that store owner. The store owner doesn't do it. And that driver knows exactly how much these stores keep in backstock, which is actually not much. The majority of retail stores do not keep a lot of these potato chip products in backstock, which kind of gets into their freshness date, which I'll get to in a minute. But we package this car, right? So you basically start a load. You ping in what load, you scan a barcode on the truck, and that tells you, oh, this load is going to this gas station somewhere. And then you start and you clip it on your hand and you push your cart in the other hand. And what it literally does is you're wearing a headset. It tells you, it reads out loud the name of the chip and the section on the shelf where that chip is. And you go, you grab the chip, you scan the case, you put it on your cart, and you say complete. You would say complete out loud. It was a voice controlled system. And what this did is that little machine voice in your ear would tell you the next product to go pull. And then you pull that one and you say complete. And you walked your way in this same path around the warehouse, pulling everything that you needed for those chips, everything that you needed. And then at the end, you took your cart and you pushed it to the loading dock to be loaded onto the truck. And then that ended one load. And then you go scan into another load and you do it again and again and again. I once wore a pedometer to work in this warehouse, and in one shift, as in one day, I clocked in for the day. By the time I clocked out, I walked 15 miles on a flat concrete floor indoors in a warehouse. And it was hot too. It was hot as hell. I walked 15 miles beating my feet to hamburger on a concrete floor. They paid weekly. The first week I worked, I about collapsed because I didn't have the best footwear, and I have plantar fasciitis and I have flat feet. So I literally took my first paycheck, which was the biggest paycheck I'd ever gotten in my life. I took my first paycheck and I spent like almost half of it on two $300 pairs of high-end walking shoes just for that job. Incidentally, if anyone's ever looking for the top name in shoes, it's Dunham, by the way. Dunham is made by the New Balance company. It's their professional working shoe brand. They have very attractive shoes, and they have New Balance's same patented roll bar technology, and Dunham is the best, and it is awesome. So yeah, I did Dunham, and I bought some high-end insoles, and that was what I did with my first paycheck. Honestly, I don't think I even paid all my bills, because I knew that I couldn't work that job without obliterating my feet, because we were walking 15 miles indoors in circles on a concrete floor. Yeah. 14-hour shifts weren't unusual, not in the slightest. It was just brutal. We just had to keep going. It was one of those jobs where the shift I worked, you didn't go home till work was done. So you just go and you go and you go and you go. And even when your back is screaming and your knees are locking up and your hand is locking up from holding the handle of that push cart, you keep going. And you keep going, and you're having to stretch your hand and you're probably getting carpal tunnel from holding that push cart for the last 12 hours, and you keep going, and you keep going, and your feet are numb, and you can't feel your toes because you've walked 15 miles on polished concrete, and you keep going, and you keep going, until all the work is done. And then you go home, and then most likely you limp into the house, and you take your shoes off and you just sit there, and you might even be in too much pain to get to sleep, but you're positively exhausted. And then you get up the next day and you do it again. And you do that 5 days a week. You might work 50, 60 hours in a week, just pushing that through the warehouse, pulling case after case, and loading it into trucks full of potato chips. And it's hot, it's dusty, you can slip and fall. We were at least good at keeping the floor swept up if chips busted open or anything. I got all the free potato chips I wanted, so yay. I mentioned earlier their freshness. The reason there was so much work is that, and Frito-Lay shipped out such an ungodly amount of volume, is they have a freshness guarantee on every bag. If you sell it, if it's sold by the freshness date and you open your bag and your chips are stale, you can return those to Frito-Lay and they will replace them. No questions asked. They really stand behind that freshness guarantee. But in service of that, a lot of people don't know this, because remember when I told you earlier about how it was only the Frito-Lay drivers who restocked the shelves? And, well, if something... let's say that freshness date on the bag is a pull-by date. In other words, when that date hits, it should no longer be on the shelf. And the drivers needed to make sure that happened. But company policy at Frito-Lay was to pull any product that was within 2 weeks of its pull-by date. So Frito-Lay would take product, chips, Fritos, Lay's, Fritos, Tostitos, all of that. If it was on the shelf or in the warehouse, and it was within the 2-week mark of its freshness date, we dumped it in a dumpster. And we did that at the distribution center. We would take a few dozen cases at a time when they would do these pulls, and literally dump them all into the dumpster. And this is going to upset you. We would dump them into the dumpster. My manager would then pour half a bottle of bleach on top of them into the dumpster, and then he would padlock the dumpster. Yeah. The only upside is they let us take as many of those as we wanted. They didn't really care. Which brand did I get sick of? I didn't really mind the chips. I actually liked the chips, Mr. Piece of Work. That wasn't the worst part. I didn't eat a lot of chips to begin with, but I never got... Because I could always... People don't realize Frito-Lay owns an obscene amount of different styles of chips. So you can never really get sick of it because there's so many different ones you could eat. You could have Fritos, Cheetos, Lay's, Tostitos, Doritos. Yeah. So, to talk about the work conditions, when I heard that they were going on strike for work conditions, it didn't surprise me in the least, because, wouldn't you know, those working conditions are pretty gnarly to begin with. Like, it is a lot of crap that they go through there, and honestly, Frito-Lay does not need to have so few employees that they can't split that shift up instead of just training more people to come in and assist with getting these trucks loaded. They don't need to have people beating their feet to death on a concrete floor for 12, 13, 14 hours. Oh, and they hound you. They hound you about your metrics. Let me tell you all something. Okay? I'm old. This job I worked was before the first Amazon fulfillment center was ever built. Bezos's tactics aren't new. Jeff Bezos's tactics at his fulfillment centers are not new. He has just cribbed the most oppressive and profit-driven tactics from a variety of industries, and they've all sort of come together into Amazon facilities. That little scanner that also had a voice control system built into it that we would wear attached to our bodies, yeah, that counted your rate of packages per hour. That did that before the first fulfillment center was even a thing. This was over a decade ago. This was almost 2 decades ago. They would count your rate of packages per hour. It would count your rate of packages per hour. It would count. It would measure how quickly. It would measure how quickly you moved through the facility pulling those packages. It would measure how accurately you pulled the packages. And yeah, every day, every other day, our manager would, well, he used to call us into the conference room so we could like sit down and do it. We got this new manager with a bug up his ass that would later result in my termination. We got this new manager who wouldn't even do that. He hooked it up to the metric TV right there on the warehouse floor. He's like, oh, well, I don't like to waste too much time sitting down and going over the metrics, so I'm just going to plug my laptop in here and we'll click through. We'll click through the metrics here. And he's like, oh, yep, nope, you guys, we got to pick up the speed with this. We got to pick up the speed with that. Oh, our accuracy is down for this. Yeah, Frito-Lay was doing that almost a decade before Amazon started doing it. Amazon was not new to that tactic. Frito-Lay was measuring. Same with UPS. I worked at UPS as well. They measured our packages per hour digitally as well. And they would always come to us with printouts. Oh, you can go faster. You can go faster. But yeah, Frito-Lay was wild. And yeah, people washed out there a whole hell of a lot because that job was unnecessarily physically brutal. But they got away with, for a long time, they got away with offering that job because they were paying so much higher than minimum wage. And of course, that's always the threat under neoliberal capitalism, isn't it? You dare complain about it. You dare point out, hey, this is fucked. People have no life. And yeah, you're working 5-day weeks, but if you're working 14 hours a day for 5 days a week, do you even really get 2 days off? At that point, you're spending at least a portion of 6 days a week at work. Recovery is not a day off. There's no time to pursue education or leisure or family or health or personal betterment if literally from the time you get home to the time that you go back to work, you're literally just physically recovering. You're physically and mentally just preparing yourself to go back to work because you are too damn exhausted to do anything else. So during that time that I worked there, all that I did was work. I'd go to work, I'd come home, I'd ice my ankles, I'd play World of Warcraft, and then I'd pass out and go to sleep. And then the next day, I wouldn't go anywhere. I wouldn't really hang out much with friends, even though I had more money than I had at any other point. Because the prospect of going somewhere and doing something social, I would say, whoa, that's a lot of time I could be resting and trying to fix my sleep schedule. My ankles are still aching from the last 5 or 6 days. Like if I go out, they're still going to be aching, and then they're going to be aching when I start work tomorrow. I'm not going to be recovered, so I'm going to be slower because my ankles didn't recover over the weekend and my feet didn't recover. So I sat home. I sat at home. And I just don't think that that's what we should consider an ideal for a workplace. So when we talk about a place like Frito-Lay, even the unionization argument and the strike argument aside, they don't need to have one person holding a 14-hour shift to load fucking chips, potato chips, into a truck. And Mr. Piece of Work, I know legal offices, law firms are also in dire need of unionization. They are ones that have really fought against it a great deal. Oftentimes, lawyers are hired by corporations to help union bust. So I can only imagine organizing at a law firm to be like, that's like nightmare mode. That's got to be really, really hard. When I worked at the casino, they brought in some fancy West Coast lawyer to come talk to us because they had fear that some agitators were coming into the casino to try and get in the ear of our service staff. So they brought in some lawyer to coach us all on the propaganda and the BS. But yeah, I do not like performance metrics. I do not like performance metrics at all. They are the most dehumanizing thing you'll ever see. And this happens at all the jobs. This happens at several jobs that I've had. I've worked in telemarketing. I've worked in phone customer service for a bank. I've worked in telephone customer service for a credit card company. And every week there was that service numbers meeting that you had to go to. Oh, well, here's where your numbers are. Even when it wasn't sales jobs, it was still stupid. Like, well, here's how many 5-star ratings you got. Here's how many 5-star ratings you got on your customer service calls. Here's how many 5-star ratings you got. Oh, you got a 1-star. We're going to have to put you on an action plan because you got a 1-star. I worked at UPS. They come up to you. Oh, well, we need everybody to be up to 400 packages per hour loading speed. I worked at a sorting center, a sorting hub. Oh, you're not up to 400 packages per hour loading speed. Everybody here needs to be at 400 packages per hour loading speed, or else we're not performing well. Everywhere I go. The idea of confronting individual employees with performance metrics is not good. And like I said, yeah, Amazon, Bezos didn't start that stuff with putting the metrics up. We had a television, a big flat screen TV on the wall of the warehouse while we were working that had a ticking feed through a spreadsheet showing all of our warehouses' metrics and numbers. Packages per hour, how many packages we had for the day that we had to do, how quickly we were doing them. Yeah, everything's fucking quantified. You did Beer Bash. You did Cutco? I sold Cutco too. I sold Cutco like right after I graduated from high school. Never, ever do that. It's been made very clear to me that selling Cutco is it really only works if you have rich family and rich friends. Sad, because I actually liked some of their knives, but I love knives. I have so many knives. I have this knife. I love their knives. I have this knife. Olean, New York. I have this knife. Super Destructo. Yeah, it messes with your head, Beer Bash. Super Destructo, too. Just went through this bullshit in my call center job. Customer satisfaction scores weren't that high. Yep, that's their big one. Yep, anything lower than a 5 counts against you. And every single one of your scores below a 5-star. Yeah, it doesn't matter what they say, because they could be, in customer service, they could be mad at an issue that you have absolutely nothing to do with. And they could be mad at something that you have... They could be mad at something you have no ability to fix. It could be... the issue I ran into when I worked for a bank, I did customer service calls and sales for a bank. And oftentimes... people were going up against company policies that I had no say in enforcing, but that's the thing, that'll kill your customer survey, that'll kill your customer experience or your customer satisfaction, because something the company did something the company did is pissing off the customer, but you're going to hear it in your survey, and as a result, they're going to ding you for not waving a magic wand and changing company policy. I don't like to be that guy that says, you must always tip, always give a 5 out of 5 stars. It does help, though. It will, if you want to do something to not be part of what makes their day worse, then give a max rating for any of those service industry things. For your driver, for your food delivery. If your food is delivered, consider giving them a 5-star, please. Because it's something that, especially for this gig economy shit, which has taken all these problems and made it 10 times worse, they like live and die on those ratings. All right. Let's see here. It's actually been about an hour and a half since I started this here. Want to check real quick and see who is hosting the charity stream. So bear with me for a second, folks. Don't leave. Don't you leave. Don't you leave. Don't you leave. All right, Beer Bash. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for chatting with me. Don't y'all go nowhere. Sorry, I shouldn't let that ad play. Whoops. Right. I wanted to tell you about the fundraiser, at least. They are fundraising to help some comrades who are dangerously housing insecure at the moment. This is very important. Some of these are very strong leftist comrades. We are fundraising right now. They're trying to get to $3,000. They're over 50%. So if you have it in you, please consider contributing. We we're gonna raid into Lilith Fane. All right. And there's some great lefty comrades in there right now. You might even see yours truly joining them there a little bit later. So let's start the raid. Everybody, gamers, ready up. Let's go. I know some of you are watching on Twitch. All right, I got 5 viewers, 5 raiders. Let's do this. Everybody else, thanks for joining me on the stream. If you're on YouTube, and I know some of you are, please go over to Twitch and go to Lilith's Fane. I'll be hosting on my channel, but please go and watch their channel and consider contributing. Everybody, goodbye and good luck, and thanks for joining me. Please support your housing insecure